What is up, movie buffs? Rose Show Movie Reviews. In today's review, we're going to be continuing along the line here with our Friday the 13th series, and I'm going to be giving you my honest opinion and breakdown of Friday the 13th Part 2. As always, full disclosure, if you haven't seen Friday the 13th Part 2, please go and watch that movie and then come back to the review if you choose to do so. That way, there is nothing being ruined for you and your movie-going experience as far as spoilers or anything like that is concerned. Okay, so getting into Friday the 13th Part 2. Friday the 13th Part 2 takes place, obviously, after Friday the 13th, the original. This is our first introduction to the character of Jason Voorhees, who will go on to be arguably the most iconic and popular killer in the history of slasher films, right? So it goes along the lines of basically the same concept and idea and storyline of Friday the 13th, in that, you know, camp counselors go to a camp, and, you know, there's a killer that stalks them, and they get knocked off one by one, and then there's a final battle and all that sort of thing. So there's not really too much in this movie realistically that is that much different than the original. Obviously, having Jason as the killer as opposed to his mother, Mrs. Voorhees, is a main difference. But as far as the script and the story and everything goes, it's really just a continuation of that. And I think that was really the purpose when the movie was conceived and made, was, hey, we had a low-budget horror movie that we made a lot of money on, and we need to do what we need to do right now to try and jump in and make a sequel as quick as possible so we can continue to try and cash in on the popularity of that original movie. So that was all they were trying to do with this one. This one, I guess, as far as characters go, it's really kind of a wash for me from the original Friday the 13th. I don't think there's any one character or group of characters in this movie that I necessarily like better or worse than the original Friday the 13th. You have Ted, who's kind of the comic relief, who takes place of Ned in the original. You got Paul as like the lead counselor. Jenny is his kind of girlfriend in the movie. We're introduced to our first handicapped counselor of the series in Mark, who a lot of people really like as a character. He has a cool scene in there where he's, arm wrestling all the guys that are in the cabin, and just showing that because he's, working on the wheelchair all the time, that he's got power and strength in his arm, and he's just taking guys out left and right, which catches the eye of a female counselor. There is kind of a cool scene where they, leave the camp and go to a bar in town, which kind of, takes it to a different kind of location, which is kind of cool. I would say that some of the kills in this movie, they're kind of repetitive. I mean, that's the thing about this series, right? Is that the movies, to me, and the kills that stick out to me are the ones that are a little bit different than any of the other kills in any of the other movies. There's a lot of things that are repetitive, getting, double impaled, or, a machete or a hatchet or something like that to the face, to the chest. But we do see Mark in this movie, while it's raining outside, catch a machete to the face, and he actually, in his wheelchair, goes down the stairs backwards. And I say that's probably the most memorable kill of this movie for me personally. But yeah, this movie is realistically just a continuation of the first movie. There is a pretty cool scene where the counselors are all sitting around a fire, and Paul is saying to everybody, I don't want to scare you about Jason, and he tells this kind of story about the possibility of Jason being alive and what the townsfolk say, and that he may still be out there. And then Ted comes busting out of the bushes in this caveman costume with I don't know what it is, a stake or whatever, and he's got a goofy mask on, and he starts screaming, and it scares the crap out of all the counselors, which is a little funny little thing that goes on in the movie. Throughout the movie, we find out that Jason has this whole time been living in like this makeshift house shack cabin thing in the woods that he created. And towards the end of the movie, Jenny's running through the forest and stumbles upon it. And when she goes inside, she finds a lot of remains of dead bodies, some of them being her fellow counselors. And then we have the famous scene where she tries to use her, psychology background and sees the head of Mrs. Voorhees sitting on the table with candles around it and her sweater. She puts the sweater on, and as Jason busts through the door, she says, "That's it, Jason, that's enough. Mommy's proud." And she goes through this whole thing of trying to trick him into thinking that, she is his mother, which if you realistically think about it as an adult, that's absolutely silly that would even remotely come close to working. But it's, kind of what they do. And then Paul comes and tracks Jason down, has a little battle with him. Jenny hits him with a machete. He falls to the ground. They escape. They go back to the cabin. They hear a noise at the door. They're thinking maybe it could be him. And Muffin comes running in. She's been missing the whole movie. We thought she was dead because there was a carcass, found out in the woods that looked exactly like her. And as they're sitting, kind of on the bed, and, the music starts to change like a happy tone, all of a sudden through the window busts Jason, and he's in his overalls, and he doesn't have the sack on his head, and he grabs her, and, that's the end, right? Some of the problems that some people have with this movie, I think, is that the hockey mask of Jason Voorhees has become so popular and so iconic, and the fact that he doesn't wear it in this movie, he wears kind of a sack on his head, sort of a la The Town That Dreads Sundown, that some people are like, I just don't like it, it's cheesy, it doesn't look good, it's got like, one eye hole in it, and, realistically, I mean, in hindsight, obviously looking back at it now when we've had, 10 other movies made after this that include Jason Voorhees, and the hockey mask is so iconic and it's just part of pop culture. Yeah, of course it kind of looks a little bit cheesy or whatnot, but when you think about what they were trying to do at the time, it made sense, right? He would have just grabbed something that would have been something that was he had laying around, right? It wouldn't have been something that he went to the store to go grab a mask or anything. So it's kind of a makeshift mask, but it makes sense for the character at that time. So I don't really have any issue with it. Obviously I'm a bigger fan of the Jason with the hockey mask, the bigger and more aggressive Jason. But I don't have any issue with the look or the mask of Jason because I understand it in how it fits in the timeline. This movie does introduce also to us two people playing Jason. We have Warrington Gillette that plays Jason through, let's just say, half the movie. And then we have Steve Dash who plays Jason through, maybe half the movie. The rumor is that Warrington Gillette could not do his own stunts, so they brought in Steven Dash to do kind of the stunts. And, he had the sack flopping around and he couldn't see, so they put the double stick tape on it. And I guess he had like burns or scars on his face really for the rest of his life from that. I don't know that I honestly don't know if Warrington and Steve, ever kind of made up or made peace. I know that Steve was pretty pissed off that, Warrington got, basically all the credit for playing Jason and top billing, and he's the one that was doing all the hard scenes and doing all the Jason work. There's some people that think he's Jason in this movie. There's some people that credit it to Warrington. If you watch Crystal Lake Memories, there's a lot of people that say, Warrington was Jason to me. So there's that ongoing debate, but it does give us two people playing Jason. As far as like continuity and stuff, it's not really noticeable. It's not something that like Predator, you go from, seeing a 5'10", 5'11" Van Damme, as the Predator in some scenes, and then you go to, somebody who's 7 foot playing the Predator. It's nothing like that. It's not really noticeable. It's just how the movie was made and kind of what happened. So overall, not a bad movie. Really, I guess, kind of neck and neck with me with the original Friday the 13th. Maybe I like this one just a little bit more. I don't know. I think they're both kind of middle of the pack movies for me personally, they're not movies that I would say, hey, don't watch Friday the 13th Part 2. I would definitely recommend watching it, as I think it plays an important part in, the history of Jason and building up to, kind of where we got to. There are some people that like this movie the best of the series. There are some people who have it, in the middle like me. There's some people who have it, at the end. It's really just like any movie in this series, really subjective. But, yeah, I think it's an enjoyable movie. I think it's maybe a little bit faster paced than the original Friday the 13th. And I think that might be some things that people like more about it. I think that a lot of people obviously like Jason as the killer more than Mrs. Voorhees. So that also is a plus for this movie over the original. But realistically, it's just almost the same movie with just a different killer. So that's realistically what the movie is. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. As always, leave a comment in the section below. Subscribe to the channel if you want, and be on the lookout for the rest of the videos in this series as I get them out over the next week or so. And as always, again, I hope you enjoyed the video and the breakdown. And until next time, movie fans, I'm out of here.